Morning, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today's webinar is 10 Digital Marketing Ideas for Nonprofits with Aiden Augustine.
Hello there.
Hi. My name is Kara, and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Nonprofit Hub and Do More Good. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're just going to wait a few minutes for people to get logged in, get comfortable, fill up their coffee cup. And in the meantime, you can drop in the chat where you're coming from, what your organization is, what your position is. And also, we're going to do a little icebreaker question. Are you ready for spring or summer, or are you a fan of the colder weather? So you can drop your answers in the chat while we're just getting ready to get started.
Speaking for myself, I'm coming in from Gainesville, Florida, and in our case, winter is the best time of year here, so I'm not excited about that ending and getting into the brutal, humid Florida summers. So this is actually the perfect time of year here in Gainesville.
Yes, a lot of people, they're from up north. I see a lot of people saying they're ready for summer, though. A lot of people from like Wisconsin, way up north. So I bet, yeah, Montreal, Canada are definitely ready for spring. I could understand that. Yes, that's a lot of great answers. Excited. Yeah, in Long Island. Yeah, we got people from all over today.
Love it.
So in case you're joining us late, you are in the right place if you're here to learn about marketing and get some new ideas for your nonprofit. Before we jump into today's content, I just want to take a minute to go over a few housekeeping. This webinar is going to be recorded, so you'll hear from us later with a full recording and for different resources and references that we will have throughout this presentation and anything that Aiden might mention. And you are encouraged to answer questions in the chat. We're going to have some polls, and it's going to be interactive, so we do encourage you to keep talking back and forth with us and dropping your questions in there. If you do participate and answer our questions in the polls, you will be entered into a giveaway, and we are giving away a Cause Network membership. So we're really
exciting.
Yeah, it's a really great resource that you can be a part of and be connected with tons of other nonprofit professionals and getting resources and a place to discuss your ideas. And we will have some time for Q&A at the end. So again, feel free to drop in questions as you go. And just a quick shout out to our platform partner, Firespring. They work every day to create tools and resources to make fundraising easier and more effective. So next, I'm going to introduce our teacher for today. Aiden is the co-founder and president of Feather, an industry-leading software company making digital marketing more accessible to nonprofits and event organizers. Feather's helped over 800 nonprofits and thousands of events to know, grow, and engage their audience. When he's not steering the ship at Feather, he's playing strategy games, singing karaoke. We might have to ask you for a little serenade later, or reading books about people who changed the world.
It's Hamilton or bust if I'm doing karaoke.
So thank y'all so much for joining us today. And again, have a great webinar and stay tuned. Thank you, Aiden. I'm going to turn it over to you so you can take it away.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for spending some of your time with us here today. I'm excited to jump in. I'm going to share my screen. And can we confirm? Woo, there we go. Kara, can you just confirm that this is all going through correct? You can see my slides. Perfect. All right. So like I said, I'm Aiden Augustine, co-founder and president here at Feather, and we're going to talk about 10 digital marketing ideas for nonprofits. This is going to be like a rapid fire. You can only spend like 2 to 3 minutes on each one. Would love questions through the chat. So a little bit about myself. I just got married a couple months ago, and just last week we're given our preview photos. Apparently they told us it's going to take 8 months to get our official photos from the wedding, which is crazy, but at least we got our preview photos just last week. And so a little bit again about myself. I'm a little bit of a costume theatrical weirdo, and my wife and I had a surrealist circus ball themed wedding. So you can see the kind of like Alice in Wonderland-y steampunk vibes of the groomsmen here. So fun times. And I was dressed like this ringmaster kind of idea. So that was a good time. Feather is about a 125-person marketing tech company. So we build digital marketing software tools, and we specifically focus on not-for-profits. So we work both with 501c3 charities and foundations and cause-based organizations, as well as 501c6 membership-based organizations like professional associations and such. We actually have about 1,000 nonprofits of the two types that now work with Feather. And again, what we do is we help with adoption of digital marketing tools, technologies, best practices. They are typically more common in the business world, and we're trying to bring this to the nonprofit world. So that's our background. So I'm going to go through 10 ideas. The first 5 are all going to be focused on digital advertising campaign ideas. So I'm going to talk about 5 different types of digital advertising, programmatic display versus paid search versus paid social, and give you specific actionable campaign ideas that you could put into practice immediately. Digital advertising has just become such a large part of the digital marketing pie. People spend a lot of time online these days. And so the first 5 ideas are all going to be about digital advertising as ways to reach people online. And then the second 5 are going to be other digital marketing ideas that have nothing to do with advertising, right? So we'll kind of split it half and half. And so let's dive in. But actually, I lied. And I'm going to give you an 11th idea here, a freebie. So if you are not doing any type of online advertising, you're not doing any targeting or digital paid advertising, I'm here to beat the drum that digital advertising is an incredibly effective tool for nonprofits to reach your target audiences online, whether that's for promoting your programs and making sure that the good work you're doing gets out and delivers more impact on the cause or mission that you're serving, for reaching potential donors and driving online donations and online giving, for just promoting your mission, raising awareness of the issues and the challenges that your organization is facing, right? So again, we're in 2022. People are spending, by the last stat I saw, 7 hours and 51 minutes per day online. That's US adults spending 7 hours and 51 minutes per day online. So it makes sense to try to reach people online. So I know advertising, some of you might be, this is preaching to the choir, others you might be in an organization where advertising is kind of like a dirty word, like, oh, is that something that businesses do and not something that nonprofits could do? But again, I'm here to beat the drum for this is an excellent tool for nonprofits. So tip number 0 would be start advertising online. I implore you to consider it. I'm going to give you a few ideas for how to do so. So number 1, if you're going to do one type of digital advertising, you should do retargeting, and you should retarget your shopping cart abandoners. So retargeting, we've all experienced this, is the ads that kind of follow you around after you leave a website, usually to try to bring you back. And so in this case, we're taking a page out of the online shopping book. So e-commerce, again, we've probably all experienced this. It's when you put something in a shopping cart online, but for whatever reason, you don't buy it, right? Maybe you get distracted, maybe you forgot your credit card, maybe you ran out of time, whatever. That's a pretty high intent signal, right? It's a pretty loud signal that you're interested in that product if you put it in a shopping cart, right? And so retargeting people who put something in a shopping cart but don't buy, to bring them back, those specific people that got that far along, that's a very high ROI, like a great bang for your buck way to spend money on digital advertising. So what is the closest equivalent for you? So one of the most obvious examples might be donation form abandoners. So people who make it to your donation page, maybe they even start filling out the donation form, but for whatever reason, they drop off, right? Again, maybe they got distracted, maybe they ran out of time, maybe they were frustrated by how many fields you had. That's a whole separate conversation. Or maybe just, for any number of other reasons, they didn't finish donating, but they made it to this page and they started, right? So this would be an excellent kind of bang for your buck way to start doing some digital advertising, would be to target ads specifically only to the people who made it to this page, who started the donation process, and then for whatever reason didn't fill it out. So this is a real example here from the Sea Turtle Conservancy. And this gives you a chance to theme your ads, and be a little bit funny and clever with it, based on the fact that the only people seeing this ad are people who had been to this page recently, right? So now when they're looking up recipes on the Food Network, or they're reading the news online, you can follow them around with ads saying, hey, forget something? The sea turtles are waiting. Click here to finish your donation, to try to bring them back to that page to finish the checkout. And this isn't just for donations, right? Another example might be, depending on what programs you offer, if people have to apply, maybe for say a scholarship, or say for a training program you offer, or an award, or any other types of programs, if people have to sign up, or they have to buy tickets, maybe to an event like a gala or a 5K walk or run, any type of point where someone has to fill something out or someone has to check out. You can use this retargeting of shopping cart abandonment tactic to bring people back to finish whatever that action might be. So that's idea number one. Shopping cart abandonment, just like in the retail online shopping world, can we bring that same concept to bear here for nonprofits, for driving donations or other types of dropouts along the way to filling out a form? All right. Oh, this is just one more real example here. Sorry, as you can see with IJM, people visit the page, and this is what it might look like on mobile, right? So an ad showing up. So again, these are banner ads or display ads are the examples I'm showing here. These are the kind of ads that show up on websites all over the web, but they're only showing up for specific people based on your recent browsing behavior. So cool. All right, let's move on to idea number two. Number two here. So use CRM retargeting to activate your donor lists or reactivate your donor lists with targeted ads. And so CRM retargeting, I'm drawing a distinction here against what we just saw right before this, right? So this is what we would call site retargeting, website retargeting. It's people who visit a web page, and that's where you're using as the signal to say, okay, the person who was just here and left, I want to reach them with ads. CRM retargeting, which is also sometimes called email mapping or customer list matching, is what it's called on Facebook. LinkedIn calls it matched audiences, but CRM retargeting is when you use an email list and you would upload it to a tool like Feather or to Facebook custom audiences or to LinkedIn or whatever tool you might use. And then that tool will try to find those specific people around the web. So it's kind of using their email address as the unique identifier, and then through various integrations and data platforms, you can kind of crawl the web to try to find that same person who used that email and find a third-party cookie or a device ID associated with that person. And then the email actually gets thrown out. So you're not using it to send emails, you're just using it to find them around the web and then target them with ads. And then from that point forward, it looks and feels very similar to to site retargeting. So you would then follow them around with banner ads across various websites as they go. Again, you're just using the email list as the targeting criteria. This can be an excellent 1-2 punch to do with email marketing. And so if you're sending emails out to this list, you can also use that email list for a CRM retargeting campaign, where in parallel, these ads would be following around those same people. So you're sending them maybe a series of emails, whether again, it's about promoting a big annual appeal, or it's promoting some programs, whomever it is that you're trying to reach and whatever you're trying to say to them, you can target them with ads in parallel to sending them emails. Or, as the example here might be, you can use it to reactivate previous donors. Say, I know this person donated last year. I want to target them with ads to get them to donate again. So here's a real campaign, a real example from a Feather customer that I really liked, where they used this kind of CRM email list matching capability and the ad campaigns powered thereby to supercharge their giving day. And this is the local giving day, the Amazing Give. And so these are some of the email lists that they used. So it was recent donors, previous donors, former volunteers, people who had attended various events that the Humane Society had run, even people who had unsubscribed from the email list, meaning you could no longer send them emails, but you could still use that email address to try to find them around the web for the purpose of targeting them with an ad. And then these were the ads that were shown to them, hyping up the Amazing Give and this kind of big opportunity to contribute to this big campaign they were doing. So that's a way that you can use the email list, but instead of just continuing to hit them with more and more emails, you can kind of target them with ads in parallel to your email marketing. So that is idea number 2, CRM retargeting. Let's keep going. Number 3, geofence ads to the places where your donors live, work, and play. So all of these are just different ways to reach the right person with the right ad at the right time. Right? The first one is retargeting based on your website. The second one was targeting ads based on an email list. Third one here, geofencing, is targeting ads to people based on their physical location. And this can be very acute to a specific building, or a little bit broader maybe to a neighborhood or to a city block. And again, this doesn't only apply to donors. This is just an easy example, but where do your donors live, work, and play? You can geofence those specific locations, and then you can therefore target them with ads, not only when they're in that location, but then you can also continue to follow them around and retarget them after they leave. So you're just using the fact that they were at this location in a specific time window as the targeting criteria, and then just like before, from that point on, you're just retargeting them with display ads that will follow them around the web. So here's a screenshot of what this looks like from launching it inside of our user interface. Ooh, skipped ahead there. So you can see you're literally dropping pins on a map, and you're drawing a radius around it. You can have it as tight or as broad as you would like. So this is an example of targeting 3 specific high net worth or high income neighborhoods in Gainesville. So this is kind of the hometown here, and these are neighborhoods that the property values are significantly higher. So people who probably have meaningful amount of disposable income, high net worth individuals, potential donors, this is where they live. And so you can geofence those neighborhoods and you can target ads to those specific people, right? So that's a way to kind of hone in indirectly based on income, but instead of literally targeting people based on income data, which maybe is more difficult to find, you're kind of roundabout way targeting them based on a physical location, but you know that these neighborhoods are only places where high income or high net worth individuals live. And often, because you're reaching people when they're in that physical location, you're probably reaching them on a mobile device. So that's the most common. You're seeing, so this is an example of what that might look like on a phone. So this is a dynamic banner ad that's appearing inside of a mobile app. So just want to show it's not only on websites, it could be on not only on your computer, it's on mobile websites, it's within mobile applications like you're seeing here while playing a game. And this is a real example again for Grace. So Grace is a nonprofit on the mission to end homelessness in Gainesville. And so this was a real campaign that they did targeting these high net worth neighborhoods in the Gainesville area with a donate now button. Great, so that's 3. So a couple other ways you might think about geofencing. So country clubs, yacht clubs, golf courses, right? So these are people where perhaps high net worth individuals hang out. We talked about neighborhoods, churches, and places of worship. So obviously this depends on your mission, but if your mission is aligned with a specific religious faith, or even if you just believe that the values of a specific religious faith align very well with the mission you're solving, even if your organization itself is not necessarily religiously affiliated, you can target ads to churches and other places of worship, with the idea being that the people who are attending these places likely have the values that align very closely with your cause and are perhaps more likely, therefore, to be potential donors or potential volunteers to your mission. Festivals, concerts, sporting events, so this is something to think about if you're trying to reach maybe a certain demographic, right? So maybe a music festival tends to pull a younger audience, but it's also a younger audience with disposable income. If festival tickets typically are $300, $400. So maybe if you're trying to reach a specific demographic, trying to reach a younger audience, and you believe that this certain music festival or this certain concert or this certain sporting event, or if you just want to align, maybe again if it's like if you're a local organization and you want to align your mission with like a major just local event that happens and kind of piggyback on that, you can theme your ads or your appeal based on that concert or based on that sporting event. So that's another way you can kind of like tie in something clever there. So you can target people while they're at that concert, and they'll continue to see your ads after that event was over. So it's another kind of indirect way to get at certain groups of people based on their interests, based on their income, based on their demographic, if you know that a certain event pulls a certain type of crowd. University campuses, similar idea. If you're trying to reach maybe students for volunteers, or again, if you're just trying to reach a younger audience in general. And then last one here, other nonprofit fundraisers. So if another organization that has maybe a similar mission has done the hard work of pulling everybody together, maybe for their 5K walk or run, or maybe for their gala or their benefit concert or something like that, you can geofence that gathering. And then everyone who attended that gathering would also see your ads. And perhaps it's a way you can reach out and educate them about your mission, about your cause. And if they're interested in this other organization's cause that's perhaps somewhat similar, maybe they would also be interested in supporting your cause. So that's like another indicator of, okay, if they're supporting this nonprofit, a different one, if they're attending their fundraiser events or whatever it might be, they're probably also interested in your cause and yours as well. All right, take a pause for a moment. I see a couple of great questions have come in. So I'll take a break right at the halfway point of the first 5, since these are all talking about digital advertising, and then I'll answer all of the questions related to digital advertising at that point. and then I'll go into the second half, which is other ideas. Does that sound good? Cool stuff. All right. So idea number 4, take your paid social efforts beyond boosted posts. So just to clarify some vocabulary here. So paid social refers to advertising efforts through social media. So when you're paying money into a Facebook and Instagram or into Twitter to reach more people on those platforms. And that's partially necessary here because unfortunately, most of these platforms have significantly curtailed the amount of organic reach given to pages, right? So a company page, an organization page gets a relatively small amount of distribution and reach for its organic posts relative to the amount of followers. So it's pretty common that fewer than 10% of your followers will be seeing your posts. This is, again, a real example here from Grace, where they have almost 5,000 followers, but when they're posting things, maybe they're only seen by 300 to 400 people. So fewer than 10% of their followers are seeing their posts. And this is actually higher than some of the other stats I've seen. So this is pretty common. So Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, if you use that platform, but they're all incentivized essentially to limit your organic posts. Organic posts, I see the chat here. Organic refers to when you're just posting, right? You are posting onto Twitter, you're posting onto Facebook, right? You're not inserting any money. So organic social refers to just posting, annually, directly, with no money involved. And then paid social refers to inserting money to get more distribution, right? And so the most straightforward way to get more distribution is to do what's called a boosted post, right? So a boosted post is this: you make an organic post, and maybe it gets 300 to 400 people see it for free, and you say, well, I want this specific post to reach more people, so I'm going to put in $50, which is the example here, and then it will see extra people. So it'll still be the same post in the newsfeed. Just in this case, Facebook will show it to more people. And so you can see it's fairly cost efficient for $50. They reached another, 1,000 to 2,000 people. But boosting posts, great place to start. Great place to get some additional reach on your social posts. But it's still somewhat limiting. It's really just saying, show this to more people. There's no testing involved. There's no, the options in terms of the interesting things you could do to make sure it has impact are somewhat limited. So my suggestion here, idea number 4, is to go beyond simply boosting a post and actually make use of the advertising capabilities within whatever the main social platform that your audience is most active on, right? So in this case, again, showing Facebook, boosting a post is like, all right, this post, it stays the same. I just want it to show up to more people. Whereas using paid social within Facebook, really leveraging the advertising capabilities. You can see here a screenshot of some ads that we have run at Feather. There's significantly more options. You can see all the different ways the ad can show up. You can A/B test different combinations of image and text and body copy and what the button says. And are you trying to drive social actions like get more likes, or are you trying to drive clicks onto a link? Are you trying to drive views of a video? So depending on what your goal is, you can insert these settings, and then Facebook or Twitter can optimize for you, and they can ensure that your goal with this post or with this ad gets accomplished. And so there's just significantly more options if you go beyond boosted posts. And again, particularly when you want to do A/B testing of like, is this image better or is that image better? Which one's going to drive more clicks? Which one's going to drive more likes? Depending on what your goal is. So my recommendation here is if you're trying to get more active on social media, if you have one of the social platforms that you already have a sense is particularly important to you in terms of where your constituents and your stakeholders are active, or for potential donors where you're trying to reach them, go beyond the boosted posts and really lean into some of the opportunities with their true paid social advertising. So that's idea number 4. And number 5, for some of you, this will be obvious. I hope for all of you that it is, but for anybody who has not looked into this, the Google Ad Grant, essentially they give you free credits is the easiest way to look at it. They say it's $10,000 a month. It's actually a daily amount, and it's really hard to spend the full amount, but still it is free credits to do what would be called paid search, right? So paid social advertising is what we just talked about. Display or banner advertising is what we were talking about for the first few. Paid search is when you are paying to skip the line in a search result page and show up at the top, right? So when you're doing a search on Google and you see the little ad label here, and you have 1, 2, or 3 results. So these are text ads that show up at the top of a search engine results page, or a SERP, as a lot of marketers like to call it. So you're kind of paying to skip the line. So even if you would not show up on page 1 of Google, or you wouldn't show up at the top of page 1 of Google, you can pay to skip the line and be the first result, even though it's like an ad, technically a promoted result. And Google will give you a certain amount of free credits if you're a qualifying nonprofit. You have to apply and meet certain criteria, but they're fairly generous with this. And essentially your first something like $300 a day is free. So you can bid on search terms that you think are relevant to your organization. And again, there's certain restrictions on how you can use it and how much you can bid and where it can click through to, but still it is free. And it's a way for you to get some text ad exposure in the Google search engine. So if you have not already applied for the Google Ad Grant, I do highly recommend it. It's free. You can play around with it. And who knows, maybe if you get some meaningful results, then you could consider going beyond the free credits that they have, and you could pay to reach larger audiences, or to bid on more competitive terms, or bid more money to get more distribution. But it's a great place to start. So if you haven't already done this, highly recommend starting with the Google Ad Grant. I do see that Didi just said at the end here, the commitment to maintain a Google Ad Grant. So right, especially if to really spend the money, it does take a meaningful amount of effort and optimization. Because again, they give it to you free and they claim a large number, but it's kind of hard to spend it because of the restrictions. And if you really want to lean into this, you have to invest the time or hire some type of outsourced specialist or contractor to do it for you. But you can do like a simple set and forget, and put it up, and it won't be super optimized, but you can still get some results from it. And again, it is free. So I would clarify that I'm not necessarily saying if you're doing none of this that you should immediately start doing all of it, right? You should probably just pick maybe one of these things. So do you think the retargeting and the display ads, the geofencing is more interesting? Do you think that the Google Ad Grant and doing paid search is most interesting? Do you think that the paid social opportunities are most interesting, right? So probably start with one if you're not doing any of these. So these are all just different ideas, different options that you might consider. So I see we have some good questions. So we are the little engine that could here, and we're going to, this is the halfway point. We're going to talk about 5 other ideas that are not related to digital advertising. But before we do that, I would love to answer some of the questions that came up about the digital advertising ones. So I'm just scrolling back here. So Janine, you said, very interested in geofencing. Can I share steps on how to set that up? Right. So you would need to have a tool that allows you to do that type of ad targeting. Feather is one of them. We're not the only one out there. There are other tools out there that do geofencing, or you can also work with some agencies that might have a tool that they use on your behalf. In the case of Feather, we're a self-serve one that you could do it yourself. There are other ones out there though as well. Generally, they have pretty high minimums and minimum spends that are somewhat significant. But there's a tool called Factual, which is partially what Feather integrates with, that you can do that within as well. A couple others I can maybe try to send some links after this for geofencing. So for geofencing, you do need a tool that taps into the data networks and the ad exchanges that pulls that stuff to bear. Somewhat related, Joe asked, do these ideas require Feather to implement? What other tools are available? Right, so there's a tool called AdRoll, A-D, like ad, and R-O-L-L, roll. AdRoll does not do geofencing in the way described here, but they certainly do retargeting, the first idea that I had, as well as the email list matching capability. So AdRoll is another tool out there beyond Feather. Yes, you can do the first 3 with Feather. You can also do Facebook and Instagram ads within Feather. Feather does not support Google search at this time, so you would need to do that directly within Google Ads. There's a tool called WordStream. If you wanted to have like a special tool for managing Google search, they kind of help with the management of Google search. There's also one called SEMrush that can also be used for managing Google search, or you can just do it, like I said, directly within Google Ads. So those are a couple of different tools that are out there. Then there's a more advanced tool called Centro Basis. That's a little bit more heavy and intense and has higher minimum spends, but that's also one that you can do these within. For Facebook, you can certainly use the Google the Facebook Ads Manager directly, just like you can use the Google Ads interface directly. There's kind of trade-offs of doing it directly, goods and bads, versus trying to use a tool, like a third-party tool, like a Feather or an ad roll that kind of simplifies certain parts of it. So hopefully that was helpful to you, Joe. Elizabeth, you asked, what would be a recommended budget for these types of digital ads? One of the nice things about digital advertising is the reach is pretty significant for a relatively small amount of money, right? So for display ads, like the banner ads that we were talking about at the beginning, it's typically $4 to $5 to show an ad 1,000 times, right? So that's the CPM, the cost per mil, to show an ad 1,000 times around the web, whether that's reaching 1,000 people one time each, or it's reaching 100 people 10 times each, right? So to show an ad 1,000 times is generally in the range of $4 to $5 for that type of display ad. So it's quite affordable. For paid social, it's a little bit more expensive. I think for Facebook, it's often in the like $10 to $20, but still $10 to $20 to show an ad 1,000 times. For paid search, it's pay per click. It's a different model. You're not paying for reach, you're only paying for clicks, and it varies wildly depending on how competitive of a search term you're bidding on. So, but tying it back to the question about budget, so you can start pretty low, right? We have plenty of customers that spend, $100 on a campaign here and a couple $100 on a campaign there, and maybe, $2,000 over the course of the whole year, and that's for various different initiatives around, all 12 months. So it's something that the budget tends to go a long way, and particularly, if you're like the first idea that said the retargeting of shopping cart abandonment, in that case, the bang for your buck is going to be super high because you're only paying to reach the people who've already looked at your donate page, right? Or just looked at your website in general. If you want to just be slightly more general with site retargeting, people have already been to your website. So you can start at that, what I would call bottom of the funnel, right? People who are already a warm audience, already know who you are. You're just trying to get them to take action. And then, that's probably the best place to start. Just trying to scroll back through a couple more questions here, and then we'll jump into the second half. How do you find these people who abandoned donation using PayPal? So I guess to answer Crystal's question, how do you find the people? So this is again using one of these digital advertising tools. Essentially, you would put like a tracking code snippet, which is really just you copy and paste this little JavaScript code block into your website's HTML. If you use something like Squarespace or WordPress, they have like a spot to put tracking code snippets. It's built in. It's pretty easy. So you would just paste this tracking code snippet into your website, and that usually put in like the header or the footer, and it'll show up on all of the pages of your website automatically. And then that tool, whether you're using Feather or you're using something like AdRoll or whatever it might be, will track who's been to this page, who's been to that page, and then you can create segments. So inside of the user interface, you'll be able to say, well, show me all of the people who have been to my donate page, right? So maybe you have 10,000 site visitors and only 500 of them have been to the donate page, right? And in that case, you would say, okay, this segment here, the 500 people who have been to my donate page, target them with this ad. And you would launch a campaign, you would upload the ads you want to show, and only those 500 people would be targeted with that ad as they browse the web. So again, it's using one of these tools, and it's like a code snippet, which is very straightforward. You just copy and paste it. And then automatically will start tracking your audience. Similar to Google Analytics. If you Google Analytics set up, same thing, very similar concept. Great, I think that's all of them. Oh, wait, Becca. Understand the business reasons for the retargeting, recommendation number one, but hate this from a personal standpoint. What are the statistics supporting the effectiveness of this approach? Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the bottom line is targeted advertising works, and retargeting, so people who have already been to a site or a page or shopping cart abandonment works particularly well. So there are a lot of stats that back that up. I think the easiest one I can share from a Feather customer standpoint is, on average, our customers see 7x return on ad spend. So for every dollar that they spend with Feather, they typically get $7 in return. Now, that's obviously an average stat. It does depend on your organization and what you're trying to do with it. But in terms of like engagement rates, I think the engagement rate with retargeting is between 5 and 10 times higher of a click-through rate compared to like broader digital advertising, untargeted digital advertising. So people are significantly more likely to click an ad that was retargeted to them because it's, again, based on their recent behavior, as opposed to maybe a broader digital advertising effort that's more of like a spray and pray. So the engagement rate, I think is as much as 10 times higher with those ads when they're retargeted versus untargeted ones. So those are just a couple of stats. There's plenty more though. And okay, I see a couple more have come in here, but I think it might be best to circle back to them after getting through the second half of recommendations. So I'm going to move through ideas number 6 through 10, and then we'll just do Q&A until the end. So appreciate the engagement and all of you bearing with me here. All right, so number 6. So moving away from digital advertising, sixth idea here: A/B test your messaging using different landing pages. Right. So what do I mean by a landing page? Well, if you're running digital advertising campaigns, so people click, where does that click through to, right? Or for that matter, when you're sending out emails, an email with a call to action in particular, right? Maybe an email about an upcoming event or about a program or about, an appeal. When they click that button in the email or when they click the ad, where do they go? The most obvious place is going to your website, or maybe to a specific page on your website, right? To the donate page or to the event sign up page or to the apply for the scholarship page if that's one of your programs. But another option you have, rather than directing them to your primary website, which probably has a lot going on, a lot of information, tabs, they can navigate around, potentially get lost or distracted. If you're trying to drive action immediately, create a dedicated landing page, a standalone microsite, single page that's not part of your main website. It's a standalone page, and that's where you can drive them to. And that page only has the necessary info about this specific call to action. So if it's an ad campaign about donating, when they click it, it should go to a landing page that just has, whatever your call to action is, reasons why they should donate, and then the donate button, or even better, the embedded donate widgets. They don't even have to leave the page, right? Similarly for signing up. So ideally, you direct them to a landing page that is only bespoke for the purpose you're trying to take them to take action. And what you can do here then is you could make 2 versions of that landing page, and you can test and see which one converts at a higher rate, right? So which one drives more donations is the example shown here. So this is from an organization called Next After. Linked to, they have a great blog post kind of about A/B testing for nonprofits. And this is a great example that they shared, which is for this organization, they made 2 versions of a landing page asking for donations, one that was just text and one that had a video. And if you had to guess, which one of these do you think converted better? I'll wait for like 10 seconds. So anyone wants to put in the chat and guess. All right, so everyone's saying video. That is what the conventional wisdom would say, but it turns out wrong. This one converted more than 500% better with just text than the one with the video, right? Bucking some conventional wisdom, where video has become front and center of much marketing efforts these days, and for good reason. But when they ran the A/B test, they sent half of the people to this page and half of the people to this page. They had over 500% better performance and more conversions with the text-only page. And you never would have known that if you had just said, hey, conventional wisdom says video, this is more visually appealing, let's do this one here. So that's a great case, I think, for why you should try to do A/B testing, because you don't need to subjectively decide. You can let the results decide for you. That also applies to advertising, by the way. Previously we were talking about all the different ads, but ideally, whether you're doing geofencing or paid social or retargeting, you would have like 2 variations of your ads, whether that's like a blue one and a red one, or one with photos and one with, just your logo, or one that has kind of like, drawings on it or something, and one that has more like, again, like real photography or something. One with the human on it, and one with the, the picture of the building. I don't know, whatever. So just stuff to think about. You don't know what's going to perform best. Trying to guess is unnecessary if you can simply make an A/B test and let the data show you. So. Same thing with emails. I mean, probably a lot of you might be using an email marketing tool that has kind of the A/B testing of subject lines built in. I know a lot of email marketing tools have that. If you're not doing that, you should use that, where it'll send, maybe 10% of the list will get one email and 10% will get another. And then the tool will wait like an hour or 2 and we'll see from those first 2 which email subject line got more opens. And then it will send the remaining 80% of the list emails to the one that performed better. A lot of email marketing tools have that capability built in, so you can A/B test subject lines of an email. It's the same concept, just doing it here with the landing page that people click through to. Number 7, use website analytics to reverse engineer the user journey. And so what do I mean by the user journey? Well, you probably have multiple user journeys going on your website. So you might have the donor journey, right? So people who are coming to your website to navigate to give a donation. You might have the volunteer journey, right? So people who come to your website and try to figure out how to sign up to volunteer. You might have the, the program applicant journey, right? If you have programs that people need to apply for or sign up for, how do they do that? Navigating your website to try to figure out where to submit that information or to request information or to try to take advantage of some of the great programming that you provide. So you might have different user journeys, and you should try to consider how can you reverse engineer each one. Shoshana, I just say, can you point the AB? There's actually, this one here is a great one. So this is linked next after. They're like a consultancy for fundraising and digital fundraising in particular, and they open source like all of their experiments. Every time they do something, they share whether it worked or not on their blog, which is pretty cool. So this is one, Shoshana, I would point to. But yeah, so getting back to it, so the user journey. So if you think about maybe your donor journey, right? And then you would say, all right, there are two ways you can use website analytics to reverse engineer that. One is kind of in the aggregate, looking at like on average what happens, the total site traffic, and where do they tend to go, right? And so if anyone here is a Google Analytics geek, you're probably very familiar with this, as well as the more advanced section where they have something called behavior flow, which lets you see like, okay, people who came to this page first, where do they go next? And it'll kind of show where people click. If they're several pages deep in their website, like what was the set that they did, or in this case, this is just showing like where the traffic was coming from. How did people get to your website, or how did people get to a specific page on your website and the performance thereof, right? So this is kind of seeing like in total for your website traffic, what did they do? Where did they come from? Where did they go after landing on the first page? Did they bounce? Did they click through? But also, if you have a marketing automation tool that tracks this, you can look at individual donor journeys or user journeys or volunteer journeys, right? So this is a screenshot from within Feather where this person filled out a form and donated or signed up for something. So they've been identified. They were an anonymous website visitor, and then they filled something out. And so then they became an identified visitor. And you can see kind of the history of everything they've done. So on this day, at this time, they received an email. And before that, they viewed a specific page. And before that, they clicked something else. Before that, a week before, they saw an ad, right? And so forth. So you'd be able to scroll through a specific individual and see the history of all of their specific touch points. I'm not saying that it necessarily is logistically feasible for you to do this for like literally every visitor of your website, right? If you have thousands of unique website visitors, you're not going to go through 1,000 people one at a time and scroll through, but it can be useful maybe for, again, a specific cohort of, all right, of the 100 people who bought tickets to, this upcoming gala, how did they get here? Or maybe galas are not the best example, but people who bought tickets to an upcoming benefit concert, maybe it makes sense to look at a spot check, like a handful of those people, and just see. And it's amazing what you'll learn. People behave in ways that, as we saw with the A/B test of the video versus text, and maybe not being obvious which would perform better. I think you will find that whatever your assumptions are about what people do on your website, they're probably wrong. And therefore, again, it makes sense to, rather than guess, look at the website analytics and see what are they doing, which pages they come to, how long do they spend on which pages, what's kind of the order of activity that led them to signing up for an event or for a program or to volunteer or to donate. So again, you can reverse engineer this journey both kind of in the whole on average, for the total site traffic, as well as depending on what tools you're using, individual people, and see their journey as kind of a representative example. All right, so number 8, this isn't actually a marketing tactic here. This is more just a piece of advice, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? You don't need to come up with everything from scratch. You can learn from people who are very good at this. We live in a golden era of free, high-quality educational content. You're participating in some of that right now, right? The fact that there are free webinars, from Nonprofit Hub, where they're bringing in people who have expertise to share, all the blog articles that they share, right? I just wanted to show a few other examples of some people specifically around, digital marketing in the nonprofit sector who are putting information out there, right? So if you're a fan of Nonprofit Hub, as I assume most of you are since you're here, you're probably familiar with Bill McKendry's book that just came out called Do More Good. It's specifically about marketing for nonprofits. Dana Snyder is an expert on paid social and organic social, so Facebook specifically and social media in general. And she puts out great content. She does videos and blogs, and she has a newsletter, and she has some courses. Next After, I already mentioned them, but they're like a consultancy, but they also they put out all their stuff for free. This is like open sourcing the results of their experiments. There's a great podcast called We Are for Good. And those two folks have a marketing background, so they tend to, a lot of their stuff comes from a lens of marketing. And then, of course, us here at Feather, we like to think that we, put out some reasonably useful stuff too, whether that's webinars or some blog posts, or, like we recently partnered with Nonprofit Hub to do a guide to digital advertising. So there's a lot of people in the nonprofit sector specifically who are experts at marketing, and in some cases even more specifically about digital advertising or digital marketing of various types. And they're all putting out some great thought leadership for free. So don't reinvent the wheel. You can learn from the best, and here are some of our favorites of places to get that free information. Alrighty, number 9 on the home stretch here. So here's what I recommend. Donate $1 to your organization, and then ask your dad to donate $1 to your organization, and then ask your niece to donate $1 to your organization. Boom, peer-to-peer fundraising, right? You just raised $3. No, I'm just kidding. It's amazing to realize this, like how few of us, and Feather, we're guilty of this too. How many people on Feather's marketing team have actually gone through our website to sign up for a webinar or to request a demo, right? And so I'd ask the same question to you. Have you, and how many people at your organization have actually gone through your website and the user journey personally to donate, or to sign up for a program, or to sign up for an event, or to get on your email newsletter, right? So do it yourself. Get that hands-on experience doing it, and then get some feedback on it. Ask some friends to do it, and ideally get multi-generational feedback. Ideally get feedback from friends that are varying levels of digital savvy, and really like either watch them do it or ask them. And here's some specific keys that I would suggest you look for, right? Does the website load quickly, or does it load slowly, right? And people expect today convenience, and we expect websites to be quick on the load. If it loads for a long time, people might just leave, right? They get frustrated. How easy is it to find the donate page, or to find the sign up page, or to find the volunteer page, right? Or to find your annual report that you're putting so much effort into putting out there, right? Is it easy to find the information that you're trying to direct people towards, right? Or is it tucked away, 7 pages deep, and does it take a long time to get through each page? When you're filling out something like a donate page or an application for a scholarship or a program, how many fields are required, right? The more fields you add, the more people will drop off, right? People will get bored, they'll get tired, they'll get frustrated, they won't fill it out, they might not have the answer. So how many required fields can you trim that down? Do you really need to collect 10 fields, or could you merely collect 5 required fields when people are donating or when people are signing up? So that's a question to ask yourself. How many clicks, right? Count them, seriously. How many clicks did it take from start to finish? Time it. How long did it take start to finish, since you loaded the page and all the steps to get to whatever that outcome was? And then consider testing that, in different situations, right? So on different devices, try it on an iPhone, try it on an Android device, try it on an older phone of either type, as well as a new one, right? Try it on different screen sizes, right? On a big monitor versus on a laptop, try it on a phone, again. Internet connection speed, right? So, one way you can easily test this is on your phone. You can disable your, signal, just be on Wi-Fi, and then walk far away from whatever your kind of Wi-Fi access point is. So you're kind of at the very edge of the signal. So that's kind of one way to hack, like what would it be like to access this from a slow internet connection. So even if you have great internet, at your home or at your office, you can still kind of test what would this by like walking to the very edge of your Wi-Fi signal, or on a laptop, same idea, and see like does your website only perform well when you have 100 megabits per second because you have great internet, or does it perform well even in a worse internet connected connection environment? Same idea on a phone. Maybe if like go in the elevator, go in the garage, go somewhere where there's weak signal, and try it all then and see. Okay, does it take 5 times as long with weak signal? Okay, can we make the website lighter? Can we improve the user experience? So those are some ideas. And again, trying to get some friends to do this, and ideally multi-generational or varying levels of savvy so that you can get like really useful insight into what are you subjecting these potential donors to. Number 10, the last one, treat email as a performance marketing channel. So our observation, working with hundreds of nonprofit organizations, is that email is primarily viewed as kind of like a communications channel, right? Like broad comms. This is a way to make an announcement, right? Or we have a newsletter, or even when it's direct response, it's still kind of just blasted out there. As opposed to treating email as a performance marketing channel and applying some of the same concepts that are typically applied around digital advertising, segmenting. Let's target different emails to different people, right? Testing. Can we A/B test subject lines? A/B test, calls to action and buttons. A/B test the video versus all text, right? Really tracking results, right? And results for a start, most email tools will tell you the open rate, or maybe the click-through rate. But how about tracking conversions, right? If the goal of an email is to drive some type of action, whether that's reading the annual report or it's driving an actual financial donation in real time, like a direct response, or is it driving signups for an upcoming program? If your email has a purpose, if it is part of a action-oriented effort, you should measure how many people took that action as a result of this email, right? And so tracking conversions of an email marketing campaign. And again, our observation is that most folks are not doing that, right? Maybe you're tracking these top things, opens and click-through rate, but are you actually tracking the number of conversions? Once people click from the email, then what? Do they do the thing? Do they fill out the form? Do they make the donation? And if it is a financial-oriented thing, whether that's a paid program or it's donations or it's tickets to like a fundraising event, can you track the ROI of that email marketing effort? So that's my recommendation here. So this is a screenshot of a real campaign. And I've just changed the names for privacy purposes, but otherwise this is a real example. I'm just showing, if you're using a tool that is a performance marketing tool, you should be able to track the specific people that converted, how many conversions. And if you put a financial value on that conversions, this tool should be able to tell you, the return on investment of this email or a multiple email marketing kind of like a campaign series. If you're doing some like marketing automation or you're doing drips, across these several emails, how many people in total donated or bought a ticket, right? So that's my recommendation here. Treat email as a performance marketing channel, test, measure, be intentional about who you're sending what to, and really try to optimize those emails for conversion. So those were my 10 digital marketing ideas for y'all here today. Would love to answer any more questions that came. Oh, I'm glad to, thank you, Fernando and Lisa, and I appreciate kind words. And I hope that this was helpful to the rest of you all. I can try to scroll back and see.
I can read them off for you if that makes it easier. I have them all
Sure.
listed. So,
all right, let's do it.
We had one question kind of about security and safety, which I thought was a good point. There was a few individuals who worked for a domestic violence shelter, and they're saying that retargeting ads could potentially harm the security of their clients. For example, if they were visiting the website and maybe somebody logged on afterwards, like their abuser, and saw that they were visiting the site through an ad. Is there any way to work around that?
Yes, it's a nuanced question. It's hard to answer succinctly, but what I will share is we definitely have multiple nonprofit organizations that have different versions of this concern. We've had some where it's more like health related, like if it's a nonprofit focused on a specific disease or a specific disability, and they're providing research or education or programming around that. And so we've also had ones where it's more like personal and privacy oriented, similar to what you're showing here. So there are ways to do it. I mean, some of that gets into targeting and exclusion lists. Who are you reaching, who are you repressing in the targeting criteria? Some of that gets into the nature of the ads. So can the ads be such that the situation you literally just described of like if someone else was on the same computer, maybe like a shared computer, and they might also see the ads after the other person was using the computer, if that's the situation described, can you think about that in the messaging of the ads where it's not like as obvious? Like the example I gave before of the retargeting of the donation abandonment, that was really obvious. It was like, hey, forgot something, finish your donation here because you already started it, right? But you can think about that in your own messaging such that it would not be very obvious that this was retargeting someone based on a recent action, and make it more kind of like subtle than that. So being sensitive to what your messaging of the ads includes is another piece of the puzzle for this. There's more I could share, but it gets into specifics of targeting and exclusions and things. So, but yeah, so there are ways to accommodate for that. I think we might have actually had a case study here at Feather that we put out about that situation and how to be sensitive in that manner. But yeah, good question.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. One other question somebody asked is, do you have to provide like Feather, for example, with ads for the paid social, or could you help create graphics?
So when speaking about our services specifically, so we have both a software tool, which can be self-serve, where we provide training and support, but then you or your marketing and communications team would be using the Feather software. But we also have what we call like Feather Copilot, meaning essentially we will act as an extension of your team, and we will set up and use your Feather software for you. So we do have that as well. We're not like a full-blown agency that will do like a whole custom proposal. It's more narrowly scoped than that, but we will certainly set up and utilize the Feather tool kit, and we will run the ad campaigns or the email marketing automation campaigns from within Feather for you. And in that case, yes, we will design the ads, or we can design the emails, or we can use the assets that you already have and combine them into different variations. So we do have the option here at Feather where, again, we call it Feather Copilot, where we will do it for you, as well as the option where we provide training and support for your team to use it self-serve. So we have both.
Okay, awesome. And if somebody was just getting started and they could only pick one or two of these suggestions, what would you suggest them be the first ones to start to implement?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with number one, retargeting your existing website visitors, just because it is the most bang for your buck. It is the people who are already aware of your organization, right? They're already coming to your website, or even more specifically, coming to specific high intent pages, like the donate page, or like an event registration page, or a specific program page, right? So that's just going to be, that's going to require really the least like strategy. It's like, okay, if they're already coming to the donate page, just retarget them to bring them back, right? So that, and it's, again, most bang for your buck. It's going to be a smaller audience because it is more narrow. It's only people who've already done this action. So there's only so much money you could even spend, because you probably don't have tens of thousands of people visiting your donate page. If you are, you're very fortunate, but most nonprofits are not that fortunate. And so like there's only so much money you'd be able to spend, probably only a few $100 if you only have a few hundred or even low single digit thousands visiting a certain page. So that's where I would start, because it is both the most bang for your buck and again requires the least kind of like holistic strategy. It is the people who are already interested and aware, just trying to drive them, to nudge them over the fence, right? If they're on the fence about donating or signing up or whatever it might be, it's just reminding them, staying top of mind, nurturing them, right? But it's people who are already visiting your website. So retargeting is what I would recommend. Whether that's through banner ads, which I think typically are easier to do and most straightforward, or you can do retargeting through paid social, right? You can retarget people onto the social networks after they leave your website. But just the Facebook Ads Manager is a little bit more intimidating, I think, for most folks to start with. So display ad retargeting tends to be the easiest to start.
Awesome, thank you. And also for the retargeting, how do you deal with tracking when users have like commercial VPNs and ad blockers, tracking blockers, browsers, things like that?
Right. Yeah. So again, multiple answers to that question as well. There's certainly essentially an arms race that's been going on for years between advertising technology companies and ad blockers, which are typically like third-party kind of Chrome extensions or add-ons and things like that. And there's also a broader shift, which I think is more interesting, where some browsers by default have changed settings to be more privacy-oriented and reduce the efficacy of certain types of tracking. So, it's a different answer depending on which situation. Is it an ad blocker versus is it the settings within Safari? Some of the things I've mentioned here depend on what's called third-party cookies, which is kind of like the most classic way of tracking people website to website. But some of them do not, right? Some of them only depend on being on a certain Wi-Fi network for geofencing, a specific address, right? So in that case, privacy settings about cookies would not affect the ability to maybe target somebody through that method. Then the specific social networks each have their own solution to this, and search, Google has its own solution to this. So it is a factor, but it is not anything that stops the efficacy of these efforts. And there's also some technology shifts happening that will change how this is all done. Ultimately, I would say, for what it's worth, our goal here at Feather is to make it so that you don't need to care or worry that much about that question. And most of those things should be like technical questions that are under the hood. And yeah, you should have a technology partner that solves that for you. So that's, I guess, for whatever's worth, my plug. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think it looks like we're just about out of time. If we didn't get to any of the questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@nonprofithub.org. I'm so glad that y'all participated so much, had some really great questions, answered the poll. And thank you so much, Aiden, for sharing this. We had a lot of great comments about this webinar, and also that one person said it was one of the most informative webinars they attended recently. So
thank you
props
very
to
much. Glad to hear that.
Being a great teacher.
If anyone would like to connect with me personally, this is the link to my LinkedIn or my email address. Thank you all for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.
Yes. Y'all take care.